young men speaking in the city square, trying to tell somebody that he cares. Can you blame the voice of youth for asking what is true? Yeah, the ones that you're calling wild are gonna be the leaders in a little while. When will the lonely voice of youth cry, what is true? This our world's waking to a newborn babe, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help that voice of youth find what is true. And the lonely voice of youth cries, what is true?
Well, all right. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you, Christopher. Counting on me for what? Uh-oh. We're in real trouble. We're in real trouble now. Don't count on pirates, man. They will backstab you. Oh, yeah, they'll shiv you in the yard, man. Thanks for the encouragement. So, yes, we are here. We are ready. We have infinite amounts of material to go through because it's a very complicated sort of topic, and I want to just put a nail in it once and for all and just remove all doubt in everyone's mind forever, which I probably won't be able to accomplish, but I'm going to give it the try. So we have the Sam Powell, the big bottle. It's here. We've got a Muppet cup. Do you have a Muppet cup? You need one. You should. It's important to consider. I'm going to show you why, in fact, in this stream, I hope. And we have some masala chai from Table Rock Tea Company. Smells delicious. We'll be going on that later. And I've got my 3 ginger tea in the captain's mug. So we are ready to rock and roll and put this postmodernism garbage to bed. I have multiple videos on postmodernism, but they haven't been working. So we'll get into that. Let's start with our favorite little book here and see if we can once again pluck some remarkable wisdom. I can't make this up. I can't. Counter narratives. That's the name. Okay. The best revenge on a liar is to convince him that you believe what he said. Yep, I agree. Okay, to the rescue. I know. I got no explanation for that. None. I'm out. That's it. It's over. That's like, wow. Could not have been better. Counter narratives indeed, because that ultimately is where this is all going to lead. Yeah, we're going to get trapped in the Hall of Mirrors with counter narratives. I didn't even think of it that way. That's Taleb to the rescue. So, look, this postmodernism nonsense is nonsense. And I'm going to explain to you why and how in the best way I can. If you haven't seen the previous videos on this, and I think all 3 of the ones that I linked eventually in the description, although I didn't link them when I set up the stream because reasons, but they're all linked in the YouTube description right now, is important because of this movie, The Odyssey, but also because it just keeps coming up and it won't go away. And people, all the information is there, all the data, all the evidence, everything you could possibly need to come to the obvious conclusion is there. And all these wicked, smart people seem completely enchanted by postmodernism. A better term for postmodernism that makes more sense, like actually you can wrap your brain around, is current evilism. That would work better. Anyway, take a breath. I have a lot to get through. This is an unbelievable amount of material for a live stream. Basically, postmodernism, and particularly the Odyssey. No, I didn't see it. No, I'm not going to see it. I didn't read the book. I also don't need to. Like, this is one of those tricks, right? Like, you don't need to be a color theory expert to know that when somebody points at the sky and says it's fuchsia when it's blue, that they're wrong. Like, you don't actually need like deep involvement to find basic logical errors. It's not required. That's the point of logic, in fact, is that basic logical errors exist irrespective of your expertise in a subject. It's the whole point. Now, you can't get along with logic alone. That'll be a different live stream. But there's a mirror in postmodernism that looks like a message. And the fact of the matter is, the term postmodernism is a misuse, abuse, and crime against humanity and language. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. To that end, unlike pretty much everyone else, let's start off with a definition of modernity, which you have to define first before you say the thing that comes after it, which is already retarded, right? Like, just, you can't just say the thing after the thing. That you're not defining things at that point. So let's start with a definition. So how do we get this term modernity? Where the hell does this come from? It comes from a lot of places, actually, right? But one of the places, aside from art, is historians, right? And they're the most likely to be able to define this age. And what they do is they split it into three parts. Why they do this, that's a little more complicated. I'm not necessarily, opposed to that, right? Because we like threes, and because Pythagoras did nothing wrong, right? So it's all fine. But the question becomes, is this a good discernment, right? And both in the choice of a name and in the choice of the parts. And the answer is no, of course not, you lunatic. This is not good discernment, right? And what evidence? Well, let's look at this idea of modernity. Historically, modernity refers to the post-traditional. What? Post-traditional? Excuse me? And post-medieval. Well, we gave up, according to historians, tradition when we abandoned medieval historical period marked by the transition from an agrarian. Excuse me? You think the Middle Ages was agrarian? Okay. I don't know what you're smoking, but I wish you'd share. Sounds like good stuff. Religiously governed. Oh. Religiously governed societies. Oh. Two. Industrial, capitalist, and secular nation states. Well, how interesting. What a weird set of things to say. What a weird definition to have. How odd. Rather than being just a specific set of dates. Oh, really? But you're historians. Like, what? That's kind of useless. Historians and sociologists. Sociology is not real. I'm sorry. I'm like, my cousin has a PhD in sociology. It's a mess. Define modernity as a sweeping transformation in culture, political, and economic paradigms. Now, I just want to draw attention to a few things here in case you didn't catch them. Post-traditional and post-medieval, religiously governed. And we're trading that off, according to the historians, for industrialism, capitalism, and secular nation states. I mean, maybe, but like, that just sounds like a hard no to me on all fronts. Like, oh, okay, well, we should like undo all of that like yesterday. What's happening? No, I don't think that's what's going on. I think that's the psyop. That's the cover. Right? And so historians generally divide the era, E-R-A, which I'm going to say error, E-R-R-O-R, because that's correct. into three distinct periods. Early modernity. Oh, I wonder when that 1500 to 1789. This phase began with the Renaissance and the Age of Discovery. It's characterized by the Protestant Reformation. I wonder what we could be covering up by using this term modernity. The Scientific Revolution. I wonder what that comes out of. The decline of feudalism. Do you mean the reign of kings, sir? And the early stages of global trade and colonialism. Well, everybody thinks colonialism is evil. Are you getting a sense here for all the things that people are pointing to that are bad seem to be wrapped up in the phrases of modernity? Now, granted, this is some AI stuff, and the nice thing about AI is that it actually is good for understanding the zeitgeist of how people are conceiving of things. So if you want to do a treatise on modernity or on when did the color blue come into existence in literature and things like that, like AI actually does a reasonably good job of that. It ain't perfect, but whatever. I ain't perfect either, and nor is anyone else. I'm not too upset about the universal. And classical modernity, 1789 to 1900. Classical modernity? It makes no sense. Like, this is double ridiculousness, right? Triggered by the French and American revolutions. Oh, really? Oh, is that what it's... How odd. This era saw the rise of democratic ideals. Boy, I hope not. The Greeks wrote a lot about that. None of it was good. The establishment of the modern nation state. That makes no sense. Nation and state should not... I mean, they can cross over, but they shouldn't be crossed over on purpose, right? Rapid urbanization, everybody complains about that too. How weird, right? And the firm establishment of capitalism. I don't know what they're talking about. No one has definition of capitalism except me, of course. See my video. And then late modernity is 1900 mid to late 20th century. What? Marked by advanced industrialization. I don't even know what that means. Mass consumer culture. What? Everybody hates that. Global conflicts, the world wars, right? And the rapid acceleration of technology. Okay, and then there's an argument about when post-modernity begins, right? The after-modernity part. Well, this is a problem. All of this is a problem. This definition is a problem. This way of thinking is a problem. Everything about this is a problem. Okay, now, as I have gone over in a previous video, the main problem with this idea of modernity is that the word modern always refers to the current time. It never refers to anything in the past or anything in the future, ever, ever. It cannot do that in language. This is a crime against language, at least the English language. Now, understand that there is an art movement that also invokes this term. And maybe the historians stole it from there. Okay? And the thing is, the word post is the same deal, right? It's a deconstruction of identity as such by saying after, right? And it's referring to a, quote, identifiable thing. Although in this case, you can't identify modernity because modernity is always now. It doesn't have an identity. The present does not have an identity. Identity has to be established after things have happened and some time has passed. Okay? So you can't say post the current time, post present. That makes no sense. You're not identifying anything. You cannot ever identify anything that way. It's not actually possible. I'm just going to tell you. I said, we're already talking nonsense from the word go. Now, that fact is super important. Put that in your brain. In other words, the term post is explicitly unable to identify anything at all except via negativa, as Taleb would say, or except not that thing. But in this case, that thing is also not identifiable. So you are floating in space, which interestingly, and if you pay attention to Foucault and Derrida in particular, you will notice that they are little trickster bastards. They're little sons of bitches, just like Gerard. They get that little smirk on their face when they say that the trick, right? When they're screwing with you, they get that smirk on their face. Watched them in interviews. I have. Very clear. Very clear. They know they're lying to you or that they're tricking you. They know it. Their whole, quote, philosophy, if indeed it is any such thing, is all about treachery. Not just trickery, treachery against language, against sanity, against order, and against goodness, more importantly. And that should be 100%. This is like, oh, Nietzsche. Nietzsche had a horrible life. Why would you exemplify him? I don't. Heidegger. Yeah, okay, the Nazi guy. What are we doing? Foucault. Let's not get into that. Freaking Derrida, founds the French division of the Jan Hus Society. What as child out of wedlock? Why are we listening to these lunatics? They had horrible lives. So why does this exist? Why is this happening? It's an artifact of using a historical frame and possibly an artistic frame to talk about an art movement, right? They split things into threes, and now we are extending them, right? The post-modernity, which is already split into three, and worse yet, we've mixed up the artistic phrasing, which was likely meant to be a joke by the artists, by the way, because artists are like that. They're people like that in that pseudo-intellectual crew, and artists are very much pseudo-intellectuals, or at least some are, right? And they've mixed up this phrasing into this term, post-modernity, and now it's just a chaotic mess. And this is all the age of gnosis, right? Trying to classify things that do not need it. Do not need to classify these things. And these events are too close to us to do so. This is one of those areas where the historians always reliably fall down. Historians, they're very good about talking about past events. As they get closer and closer and closer to the present, they go completely insane. I mean, Colin Woodard, as much as I love his book, American Nations, like his actual conclusion in his book is that Greenland is the way in the future. And I'm like, well, you're not. If you knew the history of Greenland, you'd know you're not the first person that thought that, but it's been tried and it doesn't work, and we know why. So that should have been your hint, buddy. But apparently you're so blinded by your, to be fair, like excellent understanding of the past that you're blinded to like some of the things that happened in the meantime that sort of would tell you that you're wrong. Greenland? Seriously, I don't know what drugs these guys are doing. I'm upset that they're not sharing them with me. I would love to be that delusional. It sounds wonderful. But let's just put this another way. And I've got to say, I came up with this today. I was like, wow, this sounds really good. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that the water that you swim in, right? You say, oh, you don't know the water that you swim in. It isn't only about space. It's also about time. That's why historians are notoriously bad at understanding recent events, right? And it's just as though those people who are good at seeing what is going on are often familiar with what's happening today, but bad at recounting history. And it's not that they don't maybe understand history, it's just they can't recount it correctly. So historians are really good at recounting history and really bad at understanding present events. And people who understand present events really well tend to be really bad at recounting history. It's almost like a trade-off or something. I have a video on trade-offs, by the way. I'm just saying, all the material you need to understand what I'm going to say might already be on the channel, or at least hopefully it is. And if it's not, let me know. I'll do a video. But it's the water you swim in. The fact that hindsight gives you insight doesn't mean that all insight is correct. And that's one of the many errors that historians tend to make. They have hindsight, it gives them insight, They try to apply that type of insight, that nature of insight, some formula for insight on the present, and they get it horrifically and hysterically wrong, reliably. Could be a thing. If technology fools you into thinking that you can be an individual, postmodernism fools you into believing that you can be a critic. That somehow critical skills are some separate form that can be universally applied. And that is actually false. We did this with business management too, thanks to Harvard University. I've talked about this before, maybe not enough. Harvard University School of Management came up with this brilliant idea that management is a thing, which, to be fair, it is, and that if you know how to manage anything, you know how to manage any other thing. And that's obviously observably false, right? I mean, there's just some basics of business, like the way a business that is a high margin business operates has no overlap with the way a high volume, low margin business operates. It's just, you have to manage them completely differently at all levels. And I'm sure at some point, actually, Harvard knows this, but they just didn't incorporate it into the fact that, like management is not a transferable skill in that way. Like there are transferable skills from management. There's also different levels of management. So it's not as straightforward as Harvard would give people to believe, basically. And these things just do not exact at a certain level of scale, right? And we're past that scale. Your ability to critique does not scale. Let me give you an example. Being able to critique Of Mice and Men by Steinbeck, even if you can do it, let's assume like you're brilliant, you can do it. You're an author yourself. In fact, you're equal or better than Steinbeck in your authorship. I'll grant all of that. Okay. Even if you can do it, even if you are insightful and you find things in the book that maybe are not obvious to most people, and clearly, maybe even clearly, Steinbeck himself didn't realize, as if these are things you could ever measure, right? Suppose you're thoughtful, you add a bunch of value. That doesn't mean you could do that same trick with the Bible, but that pattern is there. If you care to watch closely, watch who these guys are and what they're critiquing and what they ultimately end up critiquing, and say, wait a minute, let's suppose you're the best critiquer ever. And like, even if you're just a movie critic and you successfully critique Spy Kids, that's great. Are you qualified to critique Barbie or the Odyssey by Nolan? We'll get there. So that pattern is there. And so is what happens afterwards. They all subvert or critique, because those are actually the same thing in many cases. Not in all cases, I understand that, but in almost all cases, no, really, actually pay attention, you'll see it. Existing religions or denominations, and thereby they reinvent known heresies. That's really what we're dealing with. Girard does this, Derrida does this, Foucault does, they all do this. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think they all do this biblical critique stuff or something close to it, and they end up critiquing religion as such because, like, it's right in the definition of modernity. Derrida is part of the Jan Hus Association. Like, nothing's changed. These guys are just Gnostic, heretical, pagan, religious leaders. That's all they are. They pretend to be something. They're not. I'm sorry. It's not even an option. If you believe you do not have a religion, one will be provided to you without your knowledge or consent. And maybe that's what they fell into, or maybe they knew full well what they were doing, or maybe they were taken over by demons. I don't know, and I don't care. They're not good. None of this is good. It's all bad. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all magic. and it's all enchantment, and it's all evil, and there's nothing redeemable about it. And if there was, you ain't the redeemer. So just leave it alone. Like, really, my good, the number of people they're trying to redeem things. I'm like, you don't look like Jesus to me. Go away. Your job is not to redeem. Just piss off. And the thing is, in this postmodern error, because it is an error for sure, you are always told that you are the authority via propositions, right? Or using propositions, or usually both, right? Because they're deconstructing. There's no such thing as deconstruction, by the way. It's an impossible situation. Destroying, maybe not decon. There's no such thing. It's smoke and mirror magic. You've been psyoped. Like, no, right? Via propositions, they're destroying things while being told what to think and how. Because the fact that you need to rely on a philosopher or a philosophy or appeal to someone else's philosophy to do this thing means you didn't think of it yourself. You didn't come up with it yourself. But they're telling you that you can do this. Well, if I didn't come up with it myself, can I do it? And I know that's a tricky thing. At some point when you're learning something, the person teaching it to you says, you can go off and do this by yourself now, right? But that's in that case where you're being taught, not in the case where you're just walking down the street and then something hits you on the head and you go, I can critique of mice and men and tell you what Steinbeck really meant, or reconceive of Moby Dick as a lesbian triumph over the patriarchy, which, I got to look it up. I'm sure I read about that somewhere, but in either case, I could do it. Like, I could actually do that. It's not that hard, really. You got to know what they're doing, but I can do that. Maybe not off the top of my head, but I could do it with very little work, a couple hours maybe. So you get promised access to this forbidden knowledge. Like, oh, you can find something in the text that the author didn't put there. That's forbidden knowledge, right? That you can access on your own by yourself, even though this is completely nonsensical. This makes no sense at all to believe that such a thing is true. It makes no sense. Absolutely not, right? Because the odds are that you fantasize something first, that you imagine something, you had an illusion. Like, that's way more likely to be what's going on. I'm sorry, it just is, right? And the attraction is far too much for most people to resist. So people fall down the rabbit hole of desiring the postmodern narcissistic ideal. And it's fully narcissistic. And I'm going to prove that. And perhaps one rule, and it's the exception that proves the rule. Rules are not rules if they're universal and always and forever. That's something different. That's like natural law or something else, right? So let's not go there. The one rule to follow here is to assume that all critique is subversion, which is evil, by the way. Like, oh, this is the Odyssey is a subversive movie. Oh, good, it's evil. Well, thank you. At least I know it's evil. That's good to know, right? Yeah, it is actually, and you should treat it that way. Without a good reason otherwise. And then, but that person has to bring the goods. Postmoderns never bring the goods. They just, they hand wave you into looking into the mirror and falling in love with yourself and your own ideas. That's what they mean. They tell you that explicitly, by the way. So it's kind of your own fault if you fell for that garbage. I'm sorry, but also like snap out of it, And perhaps we don't need to flip back the last flip, right? Because this is how people are talking. Oh, we're living in an upside down world. No, we're not, actually. That's actually not true. The opposite of order is chaos. It's not a different order. That's actually really important. And even if it was a different order, which you could make an argument for, well, it's not really chaos, Mark, it's a different order. And I would probably listen to you out of politeness while I was thinking to myself, man, how stupid is this person? We have to find out. That's what's going to keep us going, listening to this retard, right? I know, seriously, that's what happened. I'm sorry, I'm very polite. And yeah, that absolutely fools people. But also you should be polite. And so what do you want me to do? Deception everywhere. Too bad. Like, get over it. I'm better at it than most people. Too bad. Like, sorry. It's not going to apologize for that, right? Okay, let's suppose it's just the two orders. It's culture war, like it's the leftist culture versus the rightist culture or something. I don't. These people make no sense. What if there's an order that's correct and there's 10 orders that are wrong, and you don't know which of those 10 it is? Well, flipping the order makes no sense at that point. It's a nonsensical way to think about the world. Right? It only works in a binary where it's like things are either upside down or they're right side up. Okay, but we don't live in a two-dimensional flat world. This isn't Flatland. Read that book, by the way, it's great. This isn't Flatland, guys. Like, I'm sorry, but also, like, I understand that your cognition is limited. Why can't you accept that and do something easier for you? Like, seriously, I'm not like seriously, this is too hard. If you think it's a matter of a flip, you're way, you are so far under the ocean that you've got the bends. Like, no. This does not work in 3D space. We live in 3D space. The opposite of order is not disorder, it's chaos. It's not nothingness. That's not the opposite. But it doesn't matter because you can't just unchaos, right? Any movement you make within chaos basically creates more chaos. It's a problem. So instead, you have to just stay the course towards the good on purpose, right, with a telos, no matter what, through the flip and past the flip, because there's no flip. Like, this whole way of thinking about it is just wrong, and it doesn't work. It's like saying, oh, these guys were on top, and then they got corrupted, and so the world's upside down, right? And now when other guys get on top, it'll be like, you haven't changed anything. I mean, maybe you've temporarily gotten rid of the corruption, but the wrong order hasn't gone away. That's kind of a problem. At least from my perspective, that's kind of a problem. So how is Nolan postmodern? Christopher Nolan is a wonderful filmmaker. He has talents that I don't know how he does it. I have no idea. The guy's magic. I mean, absolutely. Yeah, like, he's amazing with a camera. Some of his landscapes are just remarkable. It's very visually enchanting. And the thing is, his movies all have a fractal nature. And we're living in a world of divided enchantment, I'm going to call it. So if you look at Nolan movies, that pretty much he only has one movie. This is not my stuff, guys. Right? Other people say this. I evaluate what they're saying on the merits. And then I try to figure out, because I've heard lots of people say that, and some of them are just parroting it, but some of them actually know how to make the case, right? So the ones that know how to make the case, they make a good logical case. I go look into it. I'm like, hey, it looks like they're right about that, right? This isn't that hard. I know people never do the work. I get that. But also, people never do the work. Don't listen to them. Be very careful who you listen to, right? Folded reality, a lower reality, right? Some subsystem changing the higher reality. Okay, these are fractal ways of thinking about the world, right? No ending, right? These movies, alleged movies, put the viewer into the role of the critic. In other words, they force you to be a postmodern critic. They force you to critique their own work in a way, not entirely. It's still a trick, because all postmodernism is a trick. It's treachery, right? They do this by forcing you outside of the film. Forcing you outside of the film. And I can contrast that for you so you see the difference. And I will do that. Barbenheimer, indeed. Now I wish I had watched Oppenheimer, but I'm not gonna. So I already saw Nolan's movies. I saw them all. I saw Inception. That's all of them. All those prestigious, great, good. But anyway. I don't think his movies are bad at all. Like, I'm just never going to watch the Odyssey for lots of reasons. In other words, you need not relate to the film or the characters in the film. at least not in the way you would do in other films. There's no there's no correspondence there. Like Inception is the ultimate example, maybe Tenet, right? But in order to enjoy a Nolan movie, because the enchantment is divided, you don't need to relate to the movie at all. It doesn't need to correspond to reality. That's part of his trick. And he's very good at it. And like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. I'm just saying this is what he does. And you need to know that in order to get the most out of his stuff. I'm not going to get anything out of the Odyssey. I already know that. So I'm never going to watch it. Also, I didn't read it. So who cares? But let's break down in divided enchantment in movie making. Okay, for a quick second. I apologize if I can't do an excellent job at this. I've been struggling with like this idea. It's just such a stupid way to think about the world. Like divided enchantment. It's like no, like the opposite of enchantment. But also, right? And movies have visuals. Nolan's very good at visuals, right? Movies have dialogue, right? And so a lot of people will point to certain aspects of something like the original Star Wars, and they'll go, that dialogue is excellent. And I go, yes, it is. And all the excellent dialogue in the original Star Wars film was ad-libbed by the actors and not written by Lucas, because who can't write dialogue? George Lucas. I'm sorry. It already happened. There's whole articles and books about this everywhere, by the way. All right. Another piece of enchantment. Guys, I'm saying this way so that you'll understand it. This is not the right way to think about enchantment. This is why I can't do that video. It's driving me nuts just trying to do it this way. Acting. Okay. I discovered this acting thing rather recently. So I've been rewatching Airwolf, which I just watched actually. I love Airwolf. Airwolf's a lot of fun. Really enjoy it. Watch Airwolf. Airwolf is, for me, nostalgia. I grew up watching Airwolf. Airwolf is awesome. It has the best helicopter ever, right? Like, obviously. And so there's a technological enchantment to Airwolf because the technology is cool and it looks good at the same time. The visuals on Airwolf are cool, right? Like the Michael Bay effect is what they call it now, right? When you're blowing things up, because Airwolf, there's always explosions. It's great. It's great. It's great. It's like the A-Team, only way better because they have a cool helicopter. And then the actors, Ernest Borgnett's awesome, right? Stringfellow Hawk, right? Jan Michael Vincent, awesome. I love them as actors. Like, I appreciate their ability to do their craft, and they have a charisma. I can't explain it. I can't really understand it. You can't really boil it down to propositions of why you shouldn't talk about enchantment, because words don't work, at least not very well, right? But there's an acting enchantment in a movie. Then there's story enchantment. Story enchantment's really important. A lot of these people might, you might call it narrative enchantment, although I think that those two might be differentiable. Again, someday I'll be able to do a stupid enchantment video, right? So story enchantment, does the story appeal to you, right? In what way? Because the problem with Airwolf has some of the stories are okay, but most of them are terrible. And I like writing. Writing's really important to me, right? I am actually an author. So, in case anybody wants to buy the book, there's a link. You can buy the book, right? I like that stuff. Okay. But the stories are terrible. But Airwolf is still the best TV show ever. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't know why. I just don't care. Right? The other forms of enchantment are so strong that they override my love of good story completely. Like, I recognize this in myself. Like, totally, like, I'm copping to the bad thing here, right? There's also in a movie a perspective enchantment where you're seeing things, either the perspective is shifting or it's changing. Like, one example of this is the Lord of the Rings, right? So Jackson decides to use the camera in a specific way, old school filmmaking, where the hobbits look small, even though they're the same size or roughly the same size as the other actors, right? Like, that is a type of enchantment because it puts you in the world in a way that nothing else can. It's perspectival enchantment. There's other forms of that where you switch the camera view, you take the camera from the viewpoint of the character that you're talking about and switch it to the third person. There's all kinds of perspective enchantments that you can use in a movie, right? And then there's a relatability enchantment. Nolan does not use this ever. All of his movies are fantasy. All of his movies are fantasy. They're not about relatable people. It doesn't say they're not about relatable experiences or apparent experiences. Some of them are, but they're not about relatable people, right? So it may match the experience, but it doesn't necessarily match up something that you have experience with in the material realm, we'll say, or in the real world, like an experience that you could share with somebody. Might be an experience that you have in your head that maybe other people have in their head, but you can never share it. And Nolan's good at that. Surprise is another element. Like it's a Michael Bay film again, right? There's a musical enchantment. The theme song to Airwolf is the best theme song that could exist. Fight me, like I love that music. I love it. I just love it. There's an enchantment from excitement. Horror movies rely a lot on this, especially the quote modern horror movies, right? They're trying to excite you, right? Fun, if you get a sense of fun, particularly if it's relatable, right? So something that is an example of relatable fun might be oh shoot, what's the name of that? What's the name of that TV show? Now I don't remember the name of the TV show. Went right out of my head. I apologize. Well, Friends is a fun, relatable show, right? With reasonable. There's a little stretch there, maybe a lot, but there's a little stretch. But there are TV shows like that. Fun is an attraction. Hogan's Heroes. We're rewatching Hogan's Heroes. It's having a blast. It's fun, right? It's silly. It's ridiculous. It's not really relatable. I've never been in World War II. I've never been part of the Great War at all. I mean, other than we're stuck in the middle of, hopefully, the third and last act will happen soon. I've never been in a prisoner of war camp. I've never been a German or an American or, the French, the English, everyone's represented. It's kind of cool. Fun show. The looks, how sleek and slick it looks. Again, the technology, right? The knowledge. This is a show. It's on Amazon Prime called Almost Paradise. I love Almost Paradise. It reminds me a lot of Burn Notice. Burn Notice has the same sort of thing. It's that Sherlock Holmes effect, right? Where the character is able to perceive the same scene, the same world, and get more information out of it, draw better conclusions, right? Do better inference from the world. In the Age of Gnosis, of course, Sherlock Holmes and Sherlock Holmes-like characters are super popular. That makes total sense. It's also not great because Age of Gnosis bad, but we are where we are. How clever it seems to be, right? So there's a novelty to seeing something different from the world you live in. That's why fantasy and sci-fi are such a big deal, like Dune, right? And Denis Villeneuve there, I mean, that guy and his camera, probably better than Nolan on the visuals. Okay on story, right? But when you see how clever the world of Dune is, that's what enchants you about the books and about the movies in Dune. Like, that's what does it. So when you pair that with good visuals, you get an interesting experience. I love the Dune stuff. The book, the first one's all right. The second one's like not well written, and it just gets worse. But whatever. I mean, that's just me, and I'm a vicious critic of story. So you don't want to ask me about your story. Don't do that. First of all, I'm not going to be honest with you because I will make you cry. The thing is, with no golden thread, as Jordan Peterson might call it, it's hard to see how valuable something is. If it's not tying all of these things together, then it's not proper enchantment. Because enchantment should be tying things together and not drawing things out. It shouldn't be divided. It shouldn't say, oh, it has enchanting visuals, but the story sucks. Like, that should never happen. That, I would say, is improper enchantment. That's how I would classify that. How do you make a good movie then? I'm just telling you this for contrast. Like hopefully this helps, right? When enchantment is about linking things together and it balances them out, right? So you don't want super good visuals and a mediocre story, or okay actors and super good visuals and a lot of excitement. Like you don't really want that. I'm not saying that doesn't make for good movies. Of course it does, unfortunately, but if you want a really good movie, the enchantment is about linking things together and keeping all of those things balanced. And again, I'm not trying to give you a complete list or anything like that. Although I think that's a pretty good list. Maybe it got the wheels rolling on how complex, not complicated. I'm not talking about combinatorial explosion. You solve combinatorial explosion with complexity, by the way, but different stream. You want to see that stream, comment below, right? You want them balanced because they're all good. You want them all to be good. You want all the components to be there and about equally contributing to the experience. That's good enchantment. We could make some arguments about whether or not any kind of material enchantment could ever be good or whatever. I'm not interested in that, in having that discussion ever. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. I'm saying just not. It's not super interesting to me. But each audience set should be seen doing the same thing, but it will look different for them, right? So they should be seeing the same thing. So you take a movie, which we did a movie club on, like Good Will Hunting. Good Will Hunting is an excellent movie. But one of the reasons why it's an excellent movie is because that fractal pattern, that is part of reality, by the way, is there. It's not manufactured like Nolan does it. It's already there. The class struggle is there. People that watch Good Will Hunting and are overeducated intellectual or pseudo-intellectual pricks have a character to relate to in that movie. The math professor. People who saw those people are just as smart and said, nah, bro, I'm out. I'm going to go help people. They relate to Sean, the psychologist. That battle is as clear as day in that movie. Like you can't really miss it. Unless you can't relate to it, in which case you will miss it there. But you know where you might not miss it? You might not miss it one layer down, where there's this struggle that Will has. Do I want to be more like the math guy or the psychologist guy? But really, I just like my buddy who's below them. That doesn't make him any worse, obviously. Ben Affleck is cool anyway. I want to be with them. These are my people. Right? And they're like, bro, we don't want you here. We want you to lead the way, to be better, to go out. And I want to show up, and I want you not to be there. Because then I'll know. Right? In the meantime, we'll support you because we're your buds. So maybe that's where you get that message from. But these other people aren't getting that same message from the same place, but they're getting the same message. That's what makes a really good movie. It doesn't matter who you are when you watch it, you're going to get the same freaking message. But you're not seeing the same movie at all. That's what makes a good movie. But it's not the only thing. But that's proper enchantment. Good Will Hunting is unbelievably good enchantment. And imagine these people read that, didn't want to make it. They had to buy the script back for $1 million to make the damn movie because the guys who had the script weren't going to make the movie. Imagine having that script in front of you and not seeing any of this. Hollywood's been that way for a while. If you don't believe me, go hunt down An Evening with Kevin Smith. The funniest 4 hours you're ever going to watch. Listen carefully to what he says about Hollywood. And then look at the date that he says it. Then you'll understand the rotten Hollywood and how long it's been there and how bad it is. So everyone watching the movie gets the same message despite seeing or noticing different things in the movie. Because that fractal pattern is there. The enchantment is done towards combining things together, drawing them together, something higher outside of the movie, not use as manipulation like Nolan does. And I'm not knocking Nolan for using manipulation. Okay. That's not the point of this. I rather enjoy some of his movies. That's not the point. The point is there's a fundamental difference. You've seen one Nolan movie, you've seen them all. And people, unfortunately, still don't realize that if you cannot write a good ending for your story, it's not a good story. Period. End of statement. If you can't end it correctly, you're just not a good storyteller. It's okay. Most people are terrible storytellers. You'll be fine. Also, stop writing stories, please. Please, please. The ending has to tie the beginning together. See the Google Doc. We're going to do the movie club on Casablanca tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., by the way. Oh, I forgot to set that up. I got to set that stream up. I got totally overwhelmed by this, by the way. You're welcome. See the Google Doc. There's a link for it in the movie club thing. It's on the Discord and it's on the previous movie club videos, right? Pay attention to the questions you have to answer in that doc. This is what I'm talking about. Why are you even doing that silly movie club thing? Because at some level it is silly, right? It's to show people how to tie things together. Because that's the skill we've lost, this poetic way of informing the world. Well, that's one attempt at I don't know how successful it is or is being or is going to be. I have no idea. I don't care. I'm trying it. We'll see if it works. That's true science and good experimentation. Sorry, science bros. No PhD required. Uh-oh. Edison, Thomas Edison, greatest scientist ever. No one's going to beat him. Fourth grade education. Don't know what to tell you. Suck it, PhDs. And there is a good. It's not mere correspondence in the movie through democracy. Oh, a bunch of people like this Christopher Nolan movie, therefore it must be good. No, the good has to be there. And then people see the good. You can't infer the good from the number of people that say it's good. Like, that's ridiculous. In fact, if it's good, you shouldn't even say that. You should say what you like about the movie. And then if that attracts other people, they should go see it. This is what makes good movie critics, by the way. I actually came up. There's a clip. It's on Nerdrotics channel. They're all talking. Piers Morgan has Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker on, and they're all talking about that at the end. It's a good clip. Actually, they're talking about the Christopher Nolan Odyssey movie. And the thing is, as long as it's not correspondence through democracy, and the ancient Greeks wrote about why democracy is bad and how it's easily manipulated by the likes of Hollywood. By the way, that might be a hint, right? It's conforming to something else, right? Reality. That's what makes it good. Not the reformation of reality to your will. Reformation of reality towards your will. Luther, Calvin, and Zwingli, anybody, Jan Hus, and anyway, back to postmodernism. Oh, wait. We'll get into that shortly. Believe it. So keep in mind that postmodernism, which, by the way, just so we're freaking clear as a bell, is purely evil with no redeeming value whatsoever, ever, explicitly states, almost correctly, that meaning is constructed rather than found. It is constructed, but if that construction is not done in accordance with reality, or maybe a pre-created or pre-existing order, that meaning won't last in the long term. It will eventually collapse. It may take 500 or so years, by the by. Random number I picked up out of nowhere at all. Believe me. No, don't believe that's a total lie. The trick of postmodernism is it's basically telling you that all meaning is just a person with nothing outside. It's just whatever your personal preference is. And I want to sort of put a finer point on that. Now, obviously, I love Jonathan Peugeot. but also let's look at what Jonathan Peugeot says about postmodernism and its alleged upsides, which again, like I want to be clear, like I find this to be invalid. Okay, there are no upsides. Okay, and perhaps that way we can get a sense for what's going on, because he very clearly states things and he's correct about most of what he's saying about postmodernism in particular, because he's not retarded. He knows what he's talking about. He's well studied on this topic. Maybe his inferences and conclusions are a bit off. That is what I would say. After all, he's French Canadian. He can do no wrong. But a few mistakes here and there. Nobody's perfect, right? And maybe that'll give us a sense for why people have these motivations behind saving this movie, as Jonathan has done. Like his review, I was like, this is the least convincing review ever. Sounds a lot like the Barbie movie. If you haven't seen my live stream about Barbie, you should watch it. The link is in the description, right? And think personal frame, like I got something from it, right? It's smart. The community frame, others can partake, like there's something here for everybody, right? And think in the global frame, like we can save all of French philosophy, which, you know, the one thing I don't want to do is attempt to save or redeem French anything, especially not so-called philosophy. But I think one way to sort of, we'll say, understand, I don't know if that's the right term, but understand this postmodernism. Jonathan talked about this at Symbolic World too. Postmodernism does not merely follow modernism historically, but is actually generated at the very inception of the modernist project. This is what he said. I found this very, very interesting when he said it, because I was like, oh, finally somebody else sees this. Thank goodness. It's not just me. Right? He builds the case to a specific structural paradox embedded within the Enlightenment. Now, it's not the Enlightenment, guys. There's no, forget about the freaking Enlightenment. Stop with the Enlightenment thing. Okay. It's the Reformation, guys. It's still the Reformation. It's always the Reformation. Everything always leads back to Reformation. We just showed you Derrida, right back to the Reformation. It's always the Reformation. How I knew this without knowing any of this history, it's a complete mystery, right? Like, oh, wow. It's almost like there's a pattern and it's clear as a bell. And if anybody did any research whatsoever, and I do mean that, like, oh my goodness, 10 minutes of research, guys, you would have realized it's not the Enlightenment, it's the Reformation. Period. End of statement. You don't need to have arguments about the freaking Enlightenment at all. It's still just the Reformation. The split nature of the Enlightenment. Peugeot states that you must always see the Enlightenment, which birthed the modern era, which is an error, by the way, as moving in two opposite directions simultaneously. On the one hand, it is a construction of an increasingly encompassing systems of rational control and measurement. Not really. Or maybe rational control and measurement, yes, but not control. There's less control. On the very same hand is a radical movement dedicated to freeing the individual, which doesn't exist, by the way, from traditional constraints, or traditionalism as such, according to the historians, right? 2, the immediate devolving into perversion. To prove that the seeds of postmodern deconstruction were active at the very beginning of the modern era, Peugeot points out that it only took one generation, roughly 20 years from the dawn of the Enlightenment, for these ideas to manifest their most extreme form in the writings of the Marquis de Sade. De Sade systematically functionalized the modern concept of individual liberty to rationalize sexual perversion and the physical torture of others. Unfortunately for Peugeot, Luther did the same thing. It took 0 generations. So it wasn't as extreme. I understand that things get more extreme as they go through time. People do not understand momentum. Fair enough. See, it's still the Reformation. Like, I don't know what to tell you. The elimination of grounding monarchy slash hierarchy. Peugeot argues that historical traditional thinking could handle structural complexity, messiness, and exceptions because everything was bound together by an overreaching spiritual and social hierarchy. That is correct. You need an ethereal container for this stuff. I disagree with the hierarchy point. I think the hierarchy emerges from the container if you do not deny creation. I think you're fine, right? If you start with the being is good axiom, everything will follow from there logically. Actually, you just need one axiom and logic, and you're good to go. The modern project actively smashed this traditional vertical hierarchy. Yes, it did. Right? They beheaded the king. The Reformation did that. To build its flattened, tidy systems of standardized control. Flattened, that is correct, right? By severing the human experience from the traditional grounding while simultaneously unleashing a radical drive for the absolute personal autonomy, modernism structurally guaranteed its own collapse. It's one way to think of it. It's not wrong. The modern impulse to destroy traditional constraints, no, it's to destroy all constraints because individualism is a destruction of all constraint, right? But by definitionally, it would be. If you apply it to persons, it would be the destruction of all constraint. And actually anything, right? If you try to make anything an individual, you're removing it from the context of the created order, like explicitly. And maybe that's appropriate in science. It's just not appropriate outside of science. And science is still embedded, even though, maybe certain philosophers would think otherwise. Science is still embedded in religion, right? Or what we're now calling religion. Thanks, Zwingli and Calvin, for redefining religion to something retarded. Appreciate it. The modern impulse to destroy traditional constraints is the postmodern impulse. Yes, exactly. Thus, the moment modernity eliminated the overarching hierarchy, it baked postmodernism directly into foundation, allowing unchecked exceptions to immediately begin multiplying and devouring the rules. That is correct. What I used to explain to people is that you would have to be several orders of magnitude of stupidity to not understand that if you try to get rid of the grand narrative, the narrative below it now becomes the grand narrative. And you can't actually live without narrative. So obviously, these people were always shysters and treacherous little bastards who were trying to screw with you. Why anybody ever listened to them or listens to them now is beyond me. And why we're trying to redeem them is something so mysterious to me that I cannot relate to it at all. I do not want to read the postmoderns and think they are smart. I do not want to find things in postmodernism that the community can partake of and make into a good thing. I have no desire to do this. I do not want to save philosophy, French philosophy, or otherwise past Plato and Aristotle, because there isn't anything to save there. If you think there is, I think you're a lunatic. I have had these arguments my entire life since I was 17 years old. So if you'd like to make the argument to me, because I really like to win these arguments, bring it on, because you will not win. I have had these arguments with PhDs. I've had these arguments with PhDs in philosophy. I've had these arguments for years. I've had way more of these discussions than you have. I guarantee it. You want to lose that argument? Please bring it. I love it. I do. You shouldn't indulge me that way. This is like feeding me too much candy, but also I'm all here for it. Let's do this. So I think that when we're talking about postmodernism and the way that we want to grab something, we'll say good out of it. What Peugeot said explicitly in Symbolic World 2, in his wonderful talk, he actually gave the best talk. He doesn't think so. I think so. A couple of us think so. Right? He goes through this thing and he basically ends up saying, the things that are good that I want to save about postmodernism are not in postmodernism. They're actually side effects of it. It's not his words. I don't have them handy. I mean, I do have them somewhere, but I don't have them handy. Right. And so Bijot breaks down how the insight accidentally highlights the true traditional Christian structures in two ways. The fractal structure of reality. Postmodernism correctly rebelled against the sterile flattening of modernity. I'm not so sure that's true. I think postmodernism contributes to the flattening, but whatever. Which had stripped away the organic, messy nooks and crannies of life. Well, that's certainly true. But I think postmodernism does the same thing, right? By focusing on the margins, postmodernism unintentionally highlights the need for a system that can handle messiness. Jonathan notes that Christianity actually solves this through the Logos emptying himself, which creates a loving hierarchy where local communities and unique individual iterations have the freedom to participate in absolute reality. The source of spiritual zeal. By understanding the margin, we can see how the marginalized or broken exception finds purpose. When an individual recognizes a traditional system, like the body of Christ, extends its love to integrate them despite their failures or structural oddities, that very exception becomes a profound source of the zeal to defend and serve the overarching rule. I agree with this. So I think his diagnosis, to some extent, is now mature and closer to correct, with the exceptions that I listed. I think his motivations are, again, local, communal, and global, because your motivations to do things are going to hit all three of those things, or you're not going to take an action. And Jonathan Bijot is certainly taking actions in this direction. And I've said this before, although I don't know if that video is out. It's on Derek Fiedler's channel. He did a wrap up. I actually went through, not that detail level, but went through the why I think Jonathan Bijot is trying to defend postmodernism and why I disagree. So that was a month and a half ago, 2 months ago now. I don't know if he's released it yet, but it will be on his channel if it's not already. So I think the problem is, what does the engagement with postmodernism result in, or correction? What is inevitable, certain, and impossible to escape, given the chopped up or dissected mechanisms of the postmodern ethos? Now, keep in mind, as Jonathan Bijot has already outlined, right, which I recounted, postmodernism starts when modernism starts. They're actually not different. Period. End of statement. They're just not different at all. We're talking about the same thing. Okay. Postmodernism is inevitable because it's baked into modernism. I kind of agree with that. The fact that it takes that long to, we'll say, bubble up into philosophy, whatever nonsense. The idea of modern philosophy all comes from the Reformation, as near as I can tell, by the way. It's all like, oh, we're going to take a theologian like Hegel and just call him a philosopher to legitimize this nonsense category of us becoming a Gnostic, pagan, heretical cult. It's basically all that's happening there, right? Aged gnosis indeed. So we're dissected the world using science. Why is this postmodern thing that emerges, 450 years later or something, happening? Or maybe it's 500 years later. I don't know, something like that. Because it's inevitable. The second you remove the overarching container, oh, that's interesting. That's also my word. That was also the word that the AI plucked out of the talk. For the material itself, right? And the overarching container for material itself is, of course, the ethereal, right? It's like, oh, where is material? Well, it's in the ethereal, dumbass. Like, why is this hard, right? You split the world up. You give the levers of control to anyone, right? It's arbitrary. Like the postmodernism makes the levers of control arbitrary. They're the ones that tell you can kill the author and rewrite the story. Obviously. So they've done that. They trick you into thinking they didn't do that, but they did it explicitly. They do it with a smile and a nod and a little smirk on their face when they say it. Bastards, wipe that smirk off their face the right way, right? You give access to everybody. You flatten the world, right? Equality doctrines emerge and result from that. This is the emergence is good. Like emergence is good because the individual emerges from the milieu of tradition. Yeah, but emergence is not good, and individuals aren't possible. So you may think you're emerging and like from the milieu of tradition. Ugh, that's why Protestant denominations don't have lasting traditions. It's not that hard. They just get flipped over all the time because they get reinvented. And then is it a tradition? I would argue no. If it's not 400 years old, it's not a tradition. It's just a ritual that you're doing right now. Sorry, Protestants, but also cut it out. Stop it. Seriously, stop it. And each person is being given, actually not even given, but forced to accept an authority beyond their capacity to handle. Part of the problem that we're living in, part of the thing that's causing the anxiety, I've said this elsewhere, is at the end of the day, we are being told that we need to understand a bunch of things that very few people, if any, could actually understand by themselves in order to operate in the world. If you want to know if you need to go see the Odyssey, you not only have to read the original, but you have to read the translation. And oh, by the way, you have to understand how Christopher Nolan makes movies. And oh, by the way, you have to know something about movies. And oh, yeah, ridiculous. None of that is required, but that's what you're being told because you're an individual. And if you were an individual, that would be true. Thankfully, you're not an individual. That is not true. You can just be under the authority of someone else instead of trying to be under your own authority, which is impossible, by the way. Right? So you don't even have the capacity to handle that authority, much less understand these things. Your cognitive capacity just is limited. And you can't understand how to build your house, like from a carpentry perspective and electrical perspective, and do the HVAC work and do, all of the appliances maintenance and all that nonsense and put the roof on, right? And then have a job and then manage, whatever hobby. Like you don't have that capacity. That's why we have a sophisticated economic system where you call the guy up and you go, yeah, there's something wrong with my HVAC. Come and fix it. Right. Or, the washer's broken. Goodbye, washer. I'll just buy a new one. Right. Or, I have a termite infestation. I'll just call somebody to come in. Like that's why these things exist. And while some of this may, in fact, be a function of mere education, right? Your ability to be an authority in something, most of it is not. You cannot train just anyone to see the big picture of the world. Like, why is there a war in Iran? Is it really about China? Or is it really about, destroying the financial hegemony of England? Or is it about both? Or is it about nuclear weapons? Or is it about all three, right? Instead of being able to even see that big picture, because not everybody can. In fact, I would argue that so few people can, it's not worth discussing, right? You can't do that through education or training or whatever any more than you can train somebody to care. And I think the confusion, because language confusion is a big deal. Like people that are using the term postmodern are committing crimes against the English language. I'm very serious about this. If it were up to me, if I had dictatorial control, I would actually, no word of a lie, throw those people in prison. You want thought police? You do not understand thought policing. I do though, and I would do it correctly, and you would all be sad for it. But you know what? I bet the world would be a better freaking place. So screw you. Put me in charge. I'll take care of it. We confuse this with the materialist idea of training people to provide care. So there are elements of caring for people that you can train people to do, even immigrants from other countries. But you cannot make those people care about the people they're doing caring things for. There's just a confusion that most people have about most things, including postmodernism. If you were paying attention to what post and modernism were referring to, you wouldn't fall into this trap. You'd be like, that doesn't make any sense at all and cannot ever be made any sense of in a way that is transmissible universally to other humans with any sort of consistency or reliability. That is correct. Much like the term social justice, which is another corruption of language that should be punished by at least prison time. These things do not make any sense as ways to communicate to other humans. I'm sorry. The fact that you can train somebody to do things that appear as caring does not mean that they care for the people they're doing them for. Those are different things. Different. You can pay caring people, you cannot pay people to care. This is an important concept that people have lost in the age of gnosis, where propositions are the highest value. And if you say something that has some comport on the world and like changes something somewhere, which it does not, doesn't mean it doesn't have an influence, but also that influence could be evil, like in the case of the postmoderns. Evil, not good, no goodness to be found. Also not required. Like goodness exists outside of that. You can just engage with the goodness directly. You need to go through the postmodernism to get to the good. Like that's not required. And at the same time, what you are being trained in, what everyone has been increasingly trained in for generations, this is where it all breaks down. You people do not understand how big this problem is because you don't understand momentum, you don't understand hierarchy, you don't understand the collapse of the hierarchy and what effect that has. I'm not claiming I have a good handle on it, but at least I know about it, right? What has been increasingly trained in for generations by entire populations, not absolutely everybody, but a hell of a lot of people, is how to wield the power provided by the dissection of enchantment. As discussed earlier in my movie example, there are other examples, but that is effectively what Jonathan Peugeot himself was talking about. And I think Machir does a good job of talking about this too, right? You could completely confuse and misinterpret the Lord of the Rings and say, oh, the ring, the One Ring in particular, is a type of technology. No, it's not. You could argue, I think it's a stupid argument. I'm not saying I have a super good answer, but I'm saying I think it's a stupid argument to say ring making is a technology. I no, no. I think that to the extent that the historians are on to something, they're on to something when they say something like, where is it? This industrialization, right? Industrial revolution. That is closer to it, right? And I do want to point out that the historians, and I forget who in particular, it's in my notes somewhere, actually do identify modernity as the meaning crisis. Before Vervaeke coined the term, right? But we have been trained in the use of this dissection that's causing the meaning crisis. We're dissecting enchantment, using those dissections as power. That's what we're doing. Right? And there are lots of parts. So not everyone gets the same parts, which may be fine, right? This is that specialization. And specialization is fine if it's in a larger container. They can't be a materialist container because now you're back to politics. Right? And it's a dissection of the world itself. We are given our own viewpoint or our own worldview, and now we can't integrate the margin because you don't know how to integrate the margin. You don't even know what the margin is. If you don't believe me, go on the internet, on the dark web. No, actually, don't ever do this, ever. Go on the dark web and see what the hell is out there. I mean, most people freak out at furries. I knew about furries in the 90s, man. Furries are weird. Jonathan talks about them, but like that's weird. I'm sorry. Virtual furries are even weirder, but there's weirder stuff still, and you don't want to know how weird it gets. It will break you. I promise you that. That's the problem of the internet. It's a flood of weird, and it's an enablement of a weird that couldn't be there otherwise, or maybe could exist, but in such small proportion that it's not poisonous to the entire society. That's worth thinking about. Maybe a small amount of extreme margin, limited to a tiny place, devastates that tiny place but can't spread. That's still better at the societal level. Unfortunate if you're in that tiny place that gets wiped out. I understand that. I understand nobody wants to be in that place. I don't care. The structure of the world doesn't care. Too bad. That sucks. We all suffer from that to some extent anyway. Stop your whining. If it's our worldview, we can't integrate the margin. We don't even know what the margin is. You are so limited in your cognition, in your awareness, in your attention, that you cannot even know what the available margins are in the world. Sorry, you can't. You got a tiny brain. It ain't gonna happen. Maybe you can start to see how some of this is actually working or not working, because that would be my argument. This whole modernity, post-modernity thing, which is the same thing, doesn't work. And in that, there is a point, but to pretend that prior to the postmodern philosophers, we had a top-down strict system would be so utterly off base, it's hard to imagine a claim exists. Seen in the larger time frame of the beheading of the king, it all makes sense that the Enlightenment would be misunderstood, resulting in modernity, or the ability to blame the Enlightenment for modernity, right? This is all downstream of the Reformation, all of it. In other words, if you lived during the time of the Enlightenment, and this is provable, by the way, it takes 10 seconds to prove this if you live in the United States or if you know US history. If you were downstream of the Enlightenment, you would not, not downstream. If you were in the Enlightenment, if you lived during that time, you would not misinterpret what they're saying to mean that gender fluidity exists. But it's perfectly reasonable to argue that the Enlightenment enabled that. The problem is that's not where it started. It started with the Reformation. It didn't start before that. All of the things, the components that are bad in the Reformation, the heresies, all of which are known heresies. There's nothing new under the sun, guys. Okay. The question is, why did all these heresies that existed for thousands of years, actually thousands, get stamped out rather easily and not corrupt the entirety or large sections of the world or entire countries, or, in our case, what we would call nations or nation states? Why did that suddenly start to happen? Like, what changed? The Reformation. That's what changed. The heresies were always there. Why are they a problem that affects so many people? Because the Reformation happens. That's why. The beheading of the king. That's when everything goes wrong. Before that, there's no age of gnosis. There's no individualism. And even after that, even in a Protestant founded nation like the United States, they wouldn't let Muslims in here. Are you nuts? The founding fathers wrote about, if you read this stuff, you'll realize immediately they wouldn't let atheists stay here. Period. If you announced you were an atheist, they would throw you out of the country faster than you could say boo. The Puritans were not freedom lovers. The Quakers were not freedom. Like, none of this ever happened. This is a fantasy that people have told you by rewriting the story in the way Christopher Nolan will with the Odyssey. So what are we to do? How do we deal with this? Postmodernism is a mirror pretending to be a message. Christopher Nolan's Odyssey is a mirror pretending to be a message. Much like Barbie, see my Barbie live stream. It's going to show you what you want to see. You are going to get a different explanation for what that movie is or does from every single person that watches it. I guarantee you that I already know this is true. I already have some evidence that it's true because I watched a couple of reviews already. Do not get fooled by the offer of power. Do not get fooled by the mirror like Narcissus was. There's narcissism everywhere. Yeah, there is. Weird. Postmodernism is a mirror. I wonder if these two things are connected. Oh, wait, postmodernism springs up when modernism's, yes, it takes a while to infect all of society or all of a culture because those are big things. Yes, momentum is real and it moves at different speeds based on where you are in the hierarchy and what you're dealing with in terms of scale. Yes, it all starts to make sense when you add in the lag and the skew. The idea that you are an authority or even could be, like, resist that idea. Most people cannot ever be an authority about actually anything at all, ever. I'm sorry. I don't even know what else to tell you, but it is true. It wouldn't make any sense if things were otherwise anyway. Or you'd have to get so specific, and this is what you see. It's all about the niches. If you're into entrepreneurship, they'll tell you it's all about the niches. If you're doing a YouTube channel, go look up the YouTube channel stuff. They'll tell you, oh, the way to make money on YouTube channels is all about the niches. It's over specialization to the nth degree. And that novelty is what's driving everything. That drives the money, the novelty. This is not a good situation for our culture, our society, or any person in it to be in. It's more splitting. It's just the Reformation all over again, more splitting. You are not outside the world, nor are you able to get there. You cannot be put in the role of critiquing the movie, even if the guy who made the movie wants you to. You can't do that. That's just the snake in the garden, plus the snakes of Pharaoh showing you a trick. It is pure treachery. Both types of treachery at once. That's what this postmodern ethos is. It's not a trick. That is denigrating it inappropriately. It is two types of treachery in one. Postmodern. It's not one trick of language. It's two tricks of language combined together to throw you into the objective material reality, which you cannot live in. That's where the meaning crisis comes from. Oh, you're apart from the world. Yeah, now you can't make meaning. Of course you can't. Duh. Oh, you have domicile. Well, if you're apart from the world, you can't have a home. No kidding. Genius. All of this was this hard to see for everybody else. There's no hope. Following the proclamations of degenerates like Foucault and Derrida and Nietzsche and freaking Heidegger. I mean, these people. Ayn Rand is a degenerate too, by the way. I like Ayn Rand, but still. Is likely not going to improve you or the world or anything in the world. And the illusion that it's doing so in the short term is an illusion. I mean, the furry people think that their, furry hedonism is improving them in the short term because they get to live out their furry fantasy. Okay, but you're doing that at the cost of everybody else in the world. Actually, because you live in the world with everybody else. Don't fall for the materialistic, individualistic, objective worldview nonsense. You do not have a worldview. And to the extent that you have a worldview, that is a statement of your constraint and limitation of your cognition and your ability to perceive the world and nothing else. It is not a worldview. You can call it worldview all day long. And it's valid to say you have a limited view of the world, but say that instead, because that's more accurate and gives you a sense for your constraint. I need the quote limited worldview of other people in order to understand the things that I am talking about. That's why I use the tools available to me. Some of them are AI. I use Jonathan Pageau's talks. I use, Critical Drinker and Nerdrotic talking to Piers Morgan about the Odyssey and Christopher Nolan, right? I use all of these things and I combine them together. And then I use special pirate enchantment powers like this to help you to understand these things. This is not my world view. That's a ridiculous way to talk. The key is to be part of the ordered creation that was here before you. It's that simple, my friends. Then you need not fall for the postmodern nonsense. Just resist it. Bruce, my friend, apropos that you would be here at this time, I am glad to see you, and I hope you are well. I bet you are, because you usually only visit us when you're sick and make me depressed. I am a midwit. Do you think so? I don't think so. I don't think you have any evidence for that. I think you're just ad hominem attacking. There have been definitions of modernism as dominant ideas current at a particular historical period. I'm sure all definitions of modernism are like that. They're also wrong. Heidegger, the nasty guy. Yeah, well, he is. Joe likes the movie. Rebuttal. Yeah, the rebuttal is that people see what they want in the movie. And I've already seen other people's reviews of the movie, and they did not see the same movie. And I know why Peugeot thinks the movie's good. I knew why he was going to think it was good months ago when he first started talking about it. This isn't that hard to figure out. And I mean, maybe I outlined it after you sent that. I don't know. I hope so. It should be 100% clear. Why is this loose? Costume is coming undone. Yeah, why does Peugeot like it? Look, he wants to save postmodernism. He wants postmodernism to save the world. Why? I mean, again, I like keep this in mind. This is like a really useful formula, actually. It's not complete, we'll say, but people want if you got something out of something, right? Like if I went down to the ocean and I had a great day, and I think other people would have a great day if they went to the ocean, and I think if everybody had a beach house, their lives would be better, I would try to sell that to you for sure. There's no question about that, except I'm not stupid and I don't try to do that. I mean, I do send things like that jokingly all the time, but it's very clear, hopefully, that I'm joking because I'm pretty hyperbolic about those things. I'll say things like, well, if everybody doesn't own a beach house, I don't even know what we're doing in this world, right? Like I say things like that on a regular basis because I'm being silly. I'm also trying to highlight that problem that if you want to save postmodernism or you want to save all of French philosophy, and I think Peugeot wants to do that, right? Like nobody has ever meant, like I knew it, right? This is what bothers me. I knew all of this stuff before doing any of the research at all. No word of a lie, decades ago. I said, I bet all these philosophers are degenerates. Every single freaking one of them. Nietzsche, syphilis from a hooker. Yeah, great. Degenerate. Heidegger, Nazi, degenerate. Bingo. Oh, it's just a short period of time. That's somebody did this too. I'm doing all this research for, well, I didn't even do it. Researchers being smacking me in the face because the internet sucks, right? This guy goes on Twitter. He's like, and this is just today, I think. He's like, oh, well, these race swap people in the Odyssey are only on the screen for a short time. And like, I actually responded to him, but normally I don't respond to retarded nitwits, but I had to tell the audience in case anybody else read his nonsense. I said, oh, it's just a little bit of corruption, so it's okay. That's your thesis? I think it's a terrible thesis. There's a little bit of corruption. It doesn't last long. Yeah, we only killed a few babies. It's fine. Like, what are we talking? No. That's the worst freaking argument of all time. And that's the thing. Bruce, Peugeot seemed to think it was the most meta movie he'd seen. Yeah, I agree. And it's some of a trick. It's hard to believe. But it's Inception. Inception is the most meta movie of all time. All Christopher Nolan movies are Inception, or maybe Tenet. I didn't see Tenet, but I've heard it's very hard to understand. I'm not surprised, right? And that's the thing. Yeah, Tenet was also another like Inception. It puts you outside of it. all of the Christopher Nolan movies put you outside of the movie. Even The Prestige. I love The Prestige, but I just thought it was fantastic. The Batman movie was great, right? But what is the hallmark of comic? See, it is the other thing. Peugeot likes comic books. That's actually a problem for me. I really struggle with this. I'm not saying comic books are bad and we should burn them all, although I'm open to that idea. Right? What's the problem with the comic book stories? The comic book stories are open-ended. They never end. That's not necessarily an issue. Or they have multiple endings and multiple beginnings. Well, at the point at which you have multiple origin stories, are you telling a story? Or are you telling any number of stories? And if you're telling any number of stories, how is that different from Inception, please? Just explain it to me like I'm 4. I'll wait here while you fail to be able to do that, because that's not a thing you can do, because we're not talking about stories anymore. We're talking about something else. Now, I could make all sorts of weird, we'll call them metaphysical arguments. I could say, well, the open-endedness and the fact that comic book stories tend to have more than one origin story and more than one thread and blah, 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 as a result of multiple authors. And I do actually believe this, by the way, so I'm not screwing with you. I'm just saying I'm not going to do this here, but also I can do it, right? Is the result of trying to recover the mythos while rejecting the existing mythos of our times, i.e. the Odyssey. What is Nolan's movie about? It's about rejecting the story of the Odyssey and rewriting it with a bunch of stuff that isn't in the Odyssey, right? Why would you rewrite a mythos? Because you know full well, 100% full well that mythos is the ultimate power, that grand narrative that the postmoderns tell you is bad, obviously a psyop, obviously they're lying to you, is the ultimate power. If you control the narrative, you control the people. Now, fortunately, this isn't accurate. This is the result of the lens of the age of gnosis, where propositions are the highest value. Propositions are not actually the highest value, and they don't work that way, right? It's enchantment does all the magic. And the fact that you can manage and manipulate some forms of enchantment, kind of, sort of, with propositions just leads you to, oh, more important than books are movies. If you step back and you look at what's going on, you can see the battle for the less literate people in the comic books, the more literate people in the books, and the people who will not read or cannot read well or whatever in the movies. But they're separate battles done by separate groups in many cases. There are some overarching themes because there are overarching themes because we're still stuck in reality. So you ain't getting rid of gravity. I know it's a banal, sort of simple example, but it's actually a really important one, right? You're not getting rid of the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. Like, there's certain patterns that we're stuck in, we're not getting out of. You can tell different stories about them. Carl Jung tried to do that. It's one of his errors. It's probably his biggest error. It's definitely one of his errors, right? Tried to link everything to the stars, right? It's like, well, yeah, when you collapse your society with modernism or postmodernism, because again, I made the case, right? Same thing, right? Peugeot kind of says the same thing. It says these are the same thing. They happen at the same time. I agree. They do. Same thing, right? But that means it's the same thing. You don't need a new name for the same thing. You can just call it modernism. Thank you very much. It's easier, right? When that collapses everything, because individualism, right, objectivism, and materialism, when that collapses everything, because we all have our own worldview all of a sudden, we look up for structure because there is structure up there. Is that the right place to look for structure? Not if by look up you mean the stars, but it's still an upgrade though, right? This is where people get stuck. Well, this is an upgrade. Well, I agree that's an upgrade. Is it a sufficient upgrade? Is it the right upgrade? Can we stop there? Because that's what people are doing. They're going, oh, this is much better, right? Like John Vervaeke, oh, meditation is an upgrade. Well, maybe for some people it is. I don't disagree. I'm actually quite a fan of meditation at some level, but most people can't do it. And if you do it by yourself, it's actually bad for you. Don't do it by yourself. And so maybe it's an upgrade. Is it sufficient upgrade? No. Group meditation is an upgrade that might be sufficient. We had a lot of luck with that, helping people with that. That works. Is playing games online an upgrade from sitting in your house playing video games by yourself on your console? Yeah, probably. It's an upgrade. Are we going to save the world by getting everybody to play, massively multiplayer online games? No, obviously not. In fact, we've tried that. It's failed. So, yeah, it's an upgrade. Oh, who cares? Like, this relativism is the only way that, quote, modernism, quote, postmodernism can survive, because everything can be considered an upgrade in relation to something. It's all upgrades all the way down and all the way up and all the way out. Sure, in relativism it is, but you're not adhering to a standard. And if you're not principled, like just Democrats, not principled, like you guys are having principled arguments with the left. The leftism is a bunch of unprincipled people. Moderates are principled, but they don't share principles. Conservatives share principles. They understand that sharing principles has problems and that principles are going to lead to all kinds of errors, right? But they know shared principles are better than random relativistic principles of the moderates. And of course, anything's better than unprincipled, which is what leftists are. You see the world that way, everything's going to make sense politically for you. Also, the conservatives are hiding. I got to find, I read it a few live streams ago. Taleb actually said that in Brad Procrustes here in this book. He actually has a quote about that, right? I think he's right. The conservatives were hiding. They're going to wait for the war to come, and then they're going to come in and bring order. That's what happens. The thing is, this is all throughout history, guys. I don't have to make this up. Like, we have evidence that this has happened over and over again. All right. That is as ranty on this topic as I think I can get without going completely insane. I know Christopher is not here, and Castle is not going to join me, I don't think. But if you would like to join me, I will post the link. And if I am smart enough, which sometimes I am, I will even pin the link. There we go. To the YouTube. So that is the link if you would like to join in and talk more about this, which would help me because now I'm exhausted. Excuse me, from researching all day and then reading all that nonsense and trying to keep myself level-headed enough, to say it all without going completely insane. Although I do feel slightly insane for having to say any of this at all ever, because it's all completely obvious. I don't know why people miss it. I really don't. Confusing to me. I don't know. I don't know where the "you are such a midwit man." Like, what are you talking about? Can you point to something, or is this just something you say when you're upset and somebody says something over your head? Oh, you're a midwit. Well, I got news for you. Most people are midwits. We're all midwits about something. Who cares? Unless you can find something wrong with my thesis, what you have to say is meaningless. So it's meaningless technically, right? Because it's not connected, right? So if you run out and you say, well, postmodernism is valid because the sky is blue, that's meaningless because it's not connected to the postmodernism. The sky was always blue. Who cares? And this is, I think, we can't make meaning. Yeah, it's because people don't know how to connect things. I mean, I got to tell you, man, if I was on one of the language of creation break-off discords, and they were doing a Lord of the Rings book club thing, and I would drop in occasionally when I had time, and I saw them in there. And I couldn't engage with these people. They're like, Boromir is like Judas, and I'm like, I how did you get there? Like, I don't understand how you get, like, what is wrong with your brain? Like, I feel like we need to, like, address this. We yeah. But, Girard, Rene Girard flat out says, "Oh, people mimic other people. That's where mimicry comes from." And I'm like, "Bro, that doesn't explain anything. Where did the first person get the mimicry from?" Like, oh, no one sees this flaw. And then when he's pushed on the issue, he says, "Oh, the first human mimicry comes from mimicking the snake in the garden." And I'm like, "Are you flipping kidding me right now?" And then Girard says other wackadoo things. Like he's buddies with Foucault, right? So I haven't found his degeneracy yet because I haven't looked, but also probably a degenerate. Um, then he says, "Oh, Christ and Satan are the same." Like he actually said that. I'm like, "Are you what? Why is anyone listening to this lunacy? This guy's a lunatic. That's ridiculous. Like that breaks everything in the Bible completely. It breaks the entire religious substructure. Like, what are you talking? And people are fooled by this guy. And but because he has some very important things that he's pointing out, like about sacrifice and mimicry. Those are two very super important things that no one's discussing. I agree. If you want to discuss them, please come and discuss them with me. I'd love to, explain more about that to people because I think it's super important. Mimicry in particular, super important. Sacrifice, super important. Like, why people don't like you got to listen to all the things the person's saying. Like, if your thesis is based on, well, the thing actually just references the other thing, like Inception, that's a bad thing. Self reference is a bad thing. It doesn't explain anything. It's anti explanation. It's trust me, bro. Like the religion that's not a religion. Trust me, bro. I'm doing good things. You can't do anything good under that structure. I'm sorry. You're not grounded. You're explicitly relativistic and self-referencing. Well, that means you're parasitic and not symbiotic. Like I know they look the same, but like they're not the same, and it's easy to tell the two apart if you're not retarded. Also, you're probably retarded. Maybe don't try to do that. Just like figure out a structure that works for you and like be in that. Don't make your own. Use something at least 1,500 years old. I mean, come on. Not, some retard came up with it last week because that's what we're stuck in, right? That's what all quote modern philosophy is. It's new religion someone came up with last week. Tommy, good to see you. One thing Ian McGilchrist has said is left hemisphere thinkers rush to conclusions to get treasure before anyone else rather than go after truth. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know he said that. That is true. That is true. I think it's definitely one of the problems. I mean, I like some of his stuff, but I prefer this. Um, I think that if you take the knowledge engine models, and of course I have multiple videos on this now. Although the early one is sort of a little bit wrong, not terribly wrong, but a little bit wrong. It says opponent processing instead of cooperative processing. My bad. I was fooled. I get fooled too. Like people are not perfect. I am also a people, so I am also not perfect. Easy logic. People miss that. That's why when somebody says like, "Oh, you're wrong," I'm like, "Well, probably," but unless you can show me about what, I'm not going to believe that you're correct and I'm wrong. That's not how that works. Just to let you know, in case you were curious. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to understand the difference between left brain and right brain thinking. I just like my model better. I also don't think it disagrees with anything that McGilchrist says. Like, I think it's complementary, but I wouldn't mind somebody like telling me otherwise if that were the case. Um, this postmodern disease that everyone has and this willingness to redeem this postmodernism or save it or I mean, to me, you're just redeeming modernism. I mean, it's the John Vervaeke, we can't go back now. Of course we can go back. Not only can we, but we will. Jared Diamond wrote a great book. I mean, he wrote Guns, Germs, and Steel, which is fantastic, by the way. I love that book. But then he wrote another book called Collapse. And poor Jared Diamond suffers from the same thing everybody else suffers from. Um, most of the book is excellent, but collapse happens. And like in the book, he sort of talks about Easter Island. And he says, I wonder if the person who chopped down the last tree on Easter Island, thought about the implications of chopping down the last tree on Easter Island. It's kind of like, hey, nitwit, because at that point you're a nitwit. I'm sorry, but you are. You don't have to do that. All you have to do is be wrong about how many trees you have to leave up for the 100-year storm. In other words, you can leave up what looks like a perfectly reasonable number of trees that will always regenerate and still be wrong about that. And so you never have to have the thought of what happens if I cut down too many trees. Like that never has to occur to you. You can believe you're not cutting down too many trees very easily, fool yourself into that belief, and never realize you've cut down too many trees because that is too hard a problem to solve. Probably because you haven't been on the island for 100 years and seen such a storm. And even if you have, did you do the calculation to figure out how many trees it required so that they weren't all blown down? Likely you cannot do such a calculation, at least not easily. This is why conservatism works, because conservatism says, let's not prefer change. Let's prefer small change and less change over a longer time period. That's the only difference. This is why people are very confused. They're like, conserve what? And I'm like, oh, the nitwits are speaking again. Whenever anybody says, what are they conserving? These are nitwits. Maybe they're very smart about something. They're not very smart about that. Conservatives, the difference is they want slow, small change over time. And they want to look at the results over generations, not during your lifetime. That's the difference. There are people with longer time horizons. That really is the only difference too. People with longer time horizons are always conservative. People who think about the now are always hedonists. That's what hedonism is. It's preferring your pleasure now to anything in the future. That's what it is. That's why drug addicts die young on average. And then there's Keith Richards, who is the exception to the rule that proves the rule. This is why I don't know when I grew up, the exception proves the rule was something we said all the freaking time as kids, like all the time. I don't know when we stopped doing that. We need to start doing that again. It's super important for people to understand that. Rules have exceptions, but they're exceptions. They're not the rule. They're not the thing to go with all the time. They're also not the thing to exclude all the time, but they are exceptions. It's weird. Like they want exceptions to be normal, but they also want to be exceptional. I'm like, you people are retarded. Like actually a little slow. Can't have both. Like pick one. So yeah, I don't know when these confusions or why these confusions happened. I mean, I do suspect it's the result of the industrialization of education. I think there is a point to be had there, but I don't think the point is what everybody else thinks it is. I think it's the agenosis, where people are preferring propositions as the highest value because they represent knowledge, all of which is false, by the way. Propositions are not the highest value. They do not represent knowledge. Knowledge has nothing to do with propositions, right? Propositions are a way to express or communicate things, and they're the worst form of communication that we have. They're the flattest, lowest form. And we've just been preferring that over the better forms. I dress up on the live stream for a reason. I have a pirate flag for a reason. Like I have these little things in the back for a reason, right? Like they're all even my buddy there. There's a reason behind this. There's a reason for this. There's a reason for this. Like they're forms of communication, of signaling. Actually, shoot, I came up with something interesting about signaling earlier today, and I forget what it is. I hope it comes back. It may not come back, but it may. You never know. But this postmodern bullshit and trying to save it or redeem it is just like saying, well, we don't want to lose any of the comforts of industrialization or our individual freedom. I was like, well, too bad. Too bad you're gonna. One way or the other, right? One way is you get concentration camps and war, by the way, because that's what happened the first time. Remember, there's no World War II. It's all just a great war. And the third act's a coming. So, big problem. Big problems are ahead. Is Bruce still here? Bruce, jump into this stupid stream. Save me. Somebody save me. Castle's not here. Christopher's not here. No one's here. Everyone left me. They all abandoned me in my time of need. I'm doing postmodernism. This is like the biggest video in the live stream sphere. It's topical, which I usually don't do, but Well, that's not true. I do topical large theme stuff, which this kind of is. But also this Odyssey movie thing is just talk about bothering me. My goodness. Um ugh. And yeah, I can't get away from it. Like cannot cannot. Sally, I didn't know you were watching, Sally. Someone needs to primordially emerge to this street. Why? Why do you do this to me, Sally? Why? Why? Do I torture you that much? Come on. Primordially emerge. Oh. What is it? What's the term? The Verviki language term? Crazy Verviki language? It's not crazy. It's something like that. Can't remember. My brain is tired. I've been so caught up in this all day. This postmodernism. It's good to contrast what Peugeot was saying because Peugeot really does have a good handle on it. He just draws the wrong conclusions. Come on, dude. Really? I hate it when people have all the information and they just like go off the rails. And then it, this is the thesis of guys like Peterson. I love Peterson, right? And I love Vervaeke, but like they have all the right information and they just can't draw the right conclusion. It's like impossible. And somebody will draw it for them in front of them and they still can't do it. I'm like, dude, why? 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 And then they'll sit there and their formula they use is if you saw the world the way I see it, you would agree with me. And I'm like, that doesn't work. Like we've given you the way to see the world, and you will not see it that way. So, and Sally, if you would have titled it "Postmodernism is the bestest," you would have got all types of people to argue with. I don't want to argue with anybody. I want people to come in and ask clarifying questions because they're confused. But I don't actually want to argue with anybody about this. Not right now. But like in the future, like if somebody really wants to like try to hit me on some of this, like it's just I think the problem is unbelievable to them. No, I have had these conversations since I was 17 years old, which is a very long time ago with all kinds of people. And I lived in Boston. So, yeah, Harvard University, Boston University, MIT. Like, I have had these conversations back in the day with PhDs. Like, I'm a monster at this. Peterson, BMI, I could take on Peterson or any of those guys on this topic easily. I've done it before. Like, total experts and me knowing nothing. And it's so easy to win. It's just sad that people don't realize how bad it is. It's so bad. You don't need any of the information to win the battle. It is a winnable battle through patterns. Very easy. You can always just there are tactics. You have to learn them, granted, but I did, and I'm good at them, and I always have been ever since I learned them, right? Sally, postmodernists don't see it as confusion. They see it as their lived truth. Exactly. Exactly. The way to resolve any confusion, any chaos is to say, oh, it's just a world I live in and normalize it. And you'll notice that all of the science idiots are all about normalization. They're all about the normative order, or they make up new normative things, right? And sometimes they call them something else, but actually they're just talking about democracy. They're talking about the vote of the most people, right? Oh, the most people see it this way, right? It's correspondence theory. That therefore it must be true, right? The thing that most people correspond to is reality. Like, no, that is not a good definition of reality. One definition of reality is it's that which objects to your subjective experience. And in that way, reality is objective. It's objective in that it objects when you're wrong. The thing that objects to you when you're wrong is reality. That's objective, sure. I absolutely. Sally, confusion is so modernist. That's right. They are postmodern, living in meta-historical era. Error. Yes, error. 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 Um, I found Peugeot's talk at Symbolic World 2, where he outlined the fact that these are the things first, that postmodernism was born with modernism. I thought, yes, that's finally somebody else figured it out. I'm so happy. But then where he outlined that the thing that he's pointing to is a side effect and not intended by the postmodernists. That's the thing he wants to quote redeem or sees value in. Okay, but you can throw out the postmodernists and save the thing that isn't within the sphere of their philosophical discourse. Like, I don't understand the need to, like, those guys all suck. Man, when I read today that Derrida was part of the Jan Hus Association and co-founded it, the French version of it, I was just like, are you kidding me right now? And that he had a kid with another philosopher while he was married. I was just like, so my guess that they're all degenerates, from the time I was like 18 was correct this whole time. Remarkable. Except no, it's obvious. Like, there is an order to the world. So of course that was going to be true. The fact, like, you can't even say things like that now because people like flip out. People flip out on me all the time. Like, hey guys, this is obvious. And of course it's like the sun rising in the east. It's that obvious. And you're just not seeing it. And because you've lost the poetic way of informing the world. Like, you've lost this. The poetic navigation. It's right there. That's what you've lost. It's a problem. It's a big problem. And then some filmmaker like Christopher Nolan comes around and takes advantage of the fact that you don't know what's valid and invalid in terms of what's connected to what, because you're stuck in the meaning crisis, which is really caused by the intimacy crisis. You don't understand the quality of the relationships that exist and need to be made in the world. You don't see it because you've lost a poetic way of knowing or seeing or informing, right? Like that, this is important. And that's what causes the meaning crisis. It's not a magic trick. It's really simple. If you don't know how to properly connect things to one another, then you're going to be stuck in a meaning crisis. Duh. You're going to feel like you don't have a home. Duh. You can't be properly grounded or you can't locate yourself properly. You can't tell where you end and other things begin if you don't understand the quality of the relationships around you. And you can't understand the quality if you don't know where you end and other things begin. If you don't know that you're not the character you play in the video game, and some people seem not to know that, then you're in a lot of trouble. I went to school in my Catholic junior high school. In fact, I went to school with a kid who, like, he thought he was Doctor Who. And I mean, he really thought he was Doctor Who. And he was talking to Romana. And I was just like blown away. I befriended the kid because I could, and it wasn't a big deal for me. But holy crap, man, seeing somebody like that in a delusion that strong, that they're living out in the, like, he would have conversations with Romana, not during class or anything that I know of anyway. I don't think I was in any classes. I think he was a grade below me, but like, he'd be sitting in the room and like having a conversation with somebody who was not there and did not exist because they were a fictional character. And this was, long before video games of that type. Like, we had Atari 2600s and stuff, but it's a thing, and it's jarring to watch when you're young, especially. But I'm glad I had that experience because it allowed me to understand so much more about the world and, you know, and just see things more clearly. Like, I'm quite blessed, quite fortunate. Sally Joe, so many houses, so few homes. Exactly. People don't know there's a house and a home. Oh my goodness. They think they can just move their home wherever. Oh, I don't know about that. So many video game lives and such little living. Yep, exactly. Well said. We should put that on t-shirts. That would be lovely. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't I don't know. I don't know. This modernity, post-modernity, taking at least diminishing the role of recess, gym, art, music, and religion in our schools. Yeah. What does that do? Well, those are the things that train your poetic way of informing the world, your poetic navigation, as it is called on this little slide. And that's a problem when you take that away. You can't tell that there's only one Christopher Nolan movie. How could I'm sorry, but how could Jonathan Peugeot, as smart as he is, not understand that Christopher Nolan has only ever made one movie and will only ever make one movie? Like, this is something that is a meme on the internet. Like, I don't how did he miss this? I don't get it. How did anybody miss this? I mean, maybe The Prestige fooled you, or maybe Batman fooled you because it's in a well, Batman's in a larger frame. Maybe, but I don't know, man. It was always obvious to me. Um, wow. Wow. Yeah. Somewhere in my notes, I have the guy who coined the term meaning crisis a long ass time ago. I just don't know where it is anymore because, man, there were a lot of notes for this live stream. I had to use a bunch of AI summary stuff because I just couldn't weed through all of it. Sally reading the old Heidi book. Kid gets physically sick from homesickness. Doctor prescribes for her to go home. How much depression in kids is just that nowadays? Yeah. Yeah. Imagine you move to a new city and you're having depression symptoms and the doctor prescribes going home. Exactly. Well, it would probably solve a lot of problems. Maybe we'd understand everything a little bit better. Native liberty. Homer grounds his characters in deeds and family lineage genealogy, and Pomo rejects and untethers it. Yeah, well, that's true. Also, the other observation that pretty much everybody has made about this movie is, um, which is fascinating to me that even guys like Critical Drinker are making this, and younger guys are making this observation. Um, there's no gods in the movie apparently. Like, they're not there, but in the story, they're right. And see, this would be my argument. My argument is that, and I do have a video on this somewhere on the channel. Uh, a myth requires supernatural, like supernatural engagement of some kind, right? And if you don't have that, you don't have a myth. You don't. You're not. You're in the realm of story. You're not in the realm of myth. And I think because people don't have a good definition of story versus myth versus narrative, they miss all that. I do have such definitions, by the way. Sally Joe thinks that was an excellent point, by the way. I'll just highlight it again, right? Um, yeah, I also think, Homer's characters are also grounded in the goodness of the deeds they do, despite their imperfections. And so, in that way, it is relatable. So even when the characters are touched or helped or the result of the gods, a direct interference, as in genetically or whatever, um, they are relatable to humans because they're part human and they do make mistakes, and yet they still hold to some form of ideal. So a lot of the Greek myths contain these elements of one or two or three ideals that a particular type of character that is touched or helped or the result of the gods, right, or supernatural forces, if you want to reduce it to secular language, um, bestowing upon them, right, or driving them towards, or steering them towards, whatever, right, and then having sort of imperfections outside of those spheres, right? And that is very relatable to us. And it's very, in a way, quote, Christian. I hate that term, but it works here. because we're far enough back in time. Um, that is important, right? It's part of it is the relatability and what the so-called atheists, which is an impossible situation, there's no such thing, um, are sort of railing against is this idea that you have to have that supernatural component. The amusing part about that is that supernatural is the actual correct scientific term, right? There's the natural world, that's where science lives, right? All philosophies are natural philosophies, right? To the Greeks. And then there's the supernatural world or the ethereal realm, as I like to call it, just to tweak everybody. But you know, quote, religious people would just call it the spiritual realm. And fair enough, it's the same thing. I'm playing with the language on purpose because if you say spiritual, you're going to turn off a bunch of secularists because they're retarded and they just can't deal with certain words to their deficit, right? And so they can't speak Christianese, as I like to call it. And so that's that's a problem. Sally Joe, atheists are just post subtle bodies. Yes, well, kind of. Don't say that to them; they'll get all upset. They won't understand what you're saying either. It's very interesting to me that uh, people end up getting upset about things they don't understand. And so when secularists hear Christianese, they tend to get angry and they tend to go on the attack immediately, whether that's an ad hominem attack or some other kind of attack. It's really not relevant. It's kind of a tell, right, for their ignorance more than anything else. And it's something that the quote Christians or the Catholics, but even the Protestants don't account for when they're talking to these people. They really think that they're much closer together than they are in terms of communication, and that is actually what's causing a lot of our problem. I mean, if you watched the Four Horsemen of Meaning conversation, whose channel was that on? That was on Jordan Peterson's channel with Peterson, Vervaeke, Peugeot, and Bishop Barron. You can see the crosstalk where they're just talking past one another, left, right, and center, even though they're using the same words. Sally Joe, I'm sorry, Sally, I'm going to modify what you said here because you said it wrong. One of the brothers Peugeot would find it hilarious, I think. I think maybe both of them would. Yeah, just to review, right? Atheists are just post subtle bodies. Yep. Yeah, I think he spelled subtle wrong, but yeah, I'm sure one of the brothers Peugeot would find it thusly. I have to talk to Mitchu. I think he's tentatively agreed to discuss some of what he was discussing in the last interview with me at some point on some kind of video. That would be lovely. And hopefully he's got some thoughts on this postmodernism nonsense that his brother is engaged in. And maybe I could get his idea of powers and principalities. I really want to understand what they're talking about there. I think I know, but I'm not sure, and I don't. And when I'm not sure, it's so weird. You always accuse me, like, you're talking about things you know nothing about. It's like, no, when I know nothing about it, I actually don't talk about it. Like, it's really easy. It just never occurs to people, right? Everyone's got to have an opinion. No, they don't. Like, I don't actually have an opinion on, how good a guitar player someone is necessarily. I mean, I can say things like, "Wow, I saw Dave Mustaine, and my goodness, he doesn't look human to me." But like, I can't talk about like the quality of his guitar playing in any reasonable fashion. I don't know enough about it. Like, I just don't. I know what I like, what I hear, sort of thing. Sure, but and that really is just an opinion, right? I can't give like an quote expert opinion, which is ridiculous, right? Expert opinion is the same as claiming authority, only you're just hedging your bets so that if you get caught being retarded, you can say, well, just in my opinion, man. It's like either you're an authority or you should shut up or just say it's an opinion and not pretend to be an expert at the same time. If you're an expert, you don't need an opinion. You can be an authority. Like, take responsibility or shut up. Oh my God, I hate people so much. All the problems come from people. Every single one. No one tells you that except me. I tell you that. Doesn't solve any problems, but it's funny to me, so it works. The rest of you are not amusing me enough. I have to amuse myself. There you go. Oh, so much research. I had 3 different sets of notes for this live stream. 3. I did so much work on this live stream. I never want to do a live stream like this again. It was too much work. I am exhausted. No one's going to jump on. Bruce won't jump on. Bruce is probably busy. How dare you have a family and priorities? What's wrong with you? Christopher did the same thing. I was like, oh, I've got family and priorities. And I'm like, well, what kind of excuse is that's lame? Completely lame. That's not acceptable. No questions, just like excellent observations, like Homer grounding his characters and deeds in family and lineage, and postmodernism rejects and untethers it. I mean, we have great insights. I love that. No questions, no like more on this. What about that? Nothing, no pushback, no nothing. I got the earlier quote pushback that isn't real pushback, right? Right. Where is it? You're such a midwit man. That's not really pushback. That's just your personal private perspective on something you know nothing about. Because you knew something about it, you just like make a point. Ad hominem attacks are not making a point. They're just sort of proving my point that you're a nitwit. So non-nitwits don't have to rely on personally attacking people. They could just like actually, attack the material, right? I think part of the problem is I know all the attacks, so I'm like, really, no one's gonna take this attack approach. I want to smack that one down. You guys are boring. So yeah. Uh all right. I don't see anybody engaging at all. I'm tired. I do see a lot of viewers though, so I like that. Um, I'm gonna call it here, I think, unless somebody wants to jump in. Because I am tired and I can't just keep talking on my own forever, even though sometimes it seems like I can. I think the days of my 8-hour live streams are over. I don't think I'll ever get back there. It was fun while it lasted years and years ago, but I only have so much energy now. And there's a huge storm outside, so I'm not sure if my electricity is going to last because my goodness, the rain. I do love the South, but the rain is great. Oh, we got one more thing to address here. Native Liberty. I don't know who you are, man, but it's good to have you here. I think postmodernism is great at destroying naive, strong foundationalism, which scientism relies on. Yeah, maybe. Yet it goes too far and undermines itself. Yeah, self-referential madness. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, I think again the problem is you're removing authority from the world. You're removing structure from the world, actually. Like explicitly, you could sort of argue that the problem with postmodernism is it says grand narrative bad, and of course you can't get rid of grand narrative, but it tries. But if you got rid of grand narrative, you have nothing to tie people together anymore, and now you're all stuck in your worldview. But you are stuck in your worldview. Like you can't have a worldview that's similar to someone else. That should be obvious because we all perceive the world slightly differently, and everyone's going to see. Just like I made this case with Barbie. If you haven't seen that live stream, it's actually worth watching because I make this point much better there. Because I'm making a point about the fact that Barbie's not a movie technically, right? It's just a bunch of unconnected, and they are unconnected scenes. It's a bunch of unconnected visual scenes, and they are actually unconnected. You get stuck, just like Jonathan Pinchot did in his review of the Odyssey. Because I heard another review of the Odyssey. There's no overlap. They did not see the same movie actually at all. They might have sat in the same theater at the same time and they would not have seen the same movie because our perceptions are different. And when you don't tie things together tightly enough, things go to heck. And we're gonna I demonstrate that and try to strengthen that skill, as I mentioned earlier, right? With our movie club. We're doing movie club tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, right? And if you can look on the community page or on my Market Wisdom Discord, there's a doc that we use, a Google Doc. You make a copy of the Google Doc, you watch Casablanca, in this case, that's what we're doing it on, right? And then you fill in the doc, like either hopefully as you watch the film, but maybe after, right? That it gives you a sense for what ties the film together. Nolan deliberately makes sure that that tight coupling doesn't happen, so you're all seeing a different movie. And like I understand the confusion, right? Because a really good movie, like I pointed out when we did a movie club on Good Will Hunting, a really good movie, everyone's going to get the same message, but they're going to get it out of a different scene, right? Or a different set of sequences or from different characters, but they're going to get the same message because it's fractally consistent. What Nolan does explicitly, and maybe he doesn't control this, we'll say maybe it's not intentional on his part, is he breaks that fractality apart and flips it open so that the practicality doesn't, we'll say, work correctly. So Sally Joe comments are not immersion enough. They are not, but the lights just flickered here. So in the interest of safety, because I don't want the stream to just like bang out, but this rain has not stopped, and sometimes we get bad storms here in South Carolina. So I am going to end it, but I do super appreciate join in more, like watch all my videos and comment on all of them. That will help, and then tell your friends and make them watch it too. No, thank you, sir. It's nice to have you. I hope this is all helpful. I hope people start to understand. I'd love to, engage with John Peugeot on some of this stuff because I really want to just help him because I think he needs help. But listen, everybody, thanks for joining. I hope everybody's a Muppet Cup. If not, you can get one at the store. I know I got to post the link for the store because I forgot this time. I've been rushing around all week because I traveled last week, so I'm in crazy mode. I will do it again next week. I don't know what the topic will be. Of course, I am on like health watch for people, so I can't guarantee I will be here Fridays, but yeah. I plan to be here next Friday, doing it all again. I don't know what the topic will be. If you have topics you want to hear about or something, leave them in the comments. Maybe I'll do them. I do kind of try to take requests when I can. Look, the whole key to all this stuff is that we're trying to get people in the state that they will be better because the world needs you to be better. If you want to make a better world, all you have to do is make yourself better. That's it. That's all we ask. So listen, everybody, take care of yourselves and each other. I will see you all soon. Hopefully for the movie club tomorrow at 10 a.m. If not, then maybe on the Discord server on Monday, I forget what time, we're doing a Jordan Peterson meetup group. That will not be on the stream, but it will be available on the Market Wisdom Discord server, which is an open Discord server, so you should be able to join. And I think we're doing the 2017 Jordan Peterson lectures. So that will be fun. And board game coming soon. So that project is rolling. We'll have it soon. It's going to be awesome. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.